Hey, we're live. The JPA is not officially started yet, although it's supposed to. It's 8:30. There's Andrew Weddle who is in. Betsy Lake is here. Who else? All right. So we are here. I'm setting up this. Okay, let me let Becca know. Okay, hold on a second here. Open that up. That. Boom. Okay. All right. Anyone that needs a Zoom link, let me know. Let's see here. I'll make this appropriately set up here so that I am not losing battery power. There it is. All right. And that's set. Okay. So there that is. Go back here. It is now 11:33 or 8:33, depending on how you look at it. We now have 4 people. Hello, everybody. Hello. Room. Okay. So audio settings. Yeah, me. Output volume. Turn up here. Me. Good. All right. All right. So the output volume is working. All right. Test mic. Howdy. Okay.
Howdy.
All right. So that works. Okay. So my mic is working. We have you all watching. Good morning. Betsy Lake is the Assistant City Administrator for the City of Oakland. I texted Nate and Rebecca that I'm in. They said, great. And this is, I have to be candid here and say this is a problem that we face. We used to start on time. Hey, David, how you doing? Dave, I saw this day coming 2 years ago, and I said it was going to happen November 25th, 2021, because when the A's started buying property in Las Vegas, that's all the signal I needed to know that they were laying the groundwork, a prelude, if you will, to relocation. And I've lived in Oakland 74, but I've been involved in this fashion of government, not as media, but just as media, but as aide to the mayor, Super Bowl bid director, consultant, since 1985 in total. An intern, if that intern. So I said 85. I should have said 1980, 86 through 80, and then in 87 I started as an intern. jumped the gun on myself for 2 years, 2 years. And over that time, we have had a consistent problem with getting things done on time, and it's just gotten worse. Here's Henry. Henry is here. I better switch gears here. Let's see here in the chat. I suppose I'll just say, oh, my chat's disabled. I can't say hi to anybody. How about that? All right. Well, so much for that. Okay. But the point I was going to make is that of late, the JPA has had a problem even getting to a quorum. And that happens when at the base of everything, you have a collective that's not enthusiastic about the organization. Because when you're enthusiastic about the organization and the process that goes with it, and you know it's supposed to start at a certain time, that doesn't happen. And so you have this disjointed level of performance. Rebecca shows up on time. Betsy Lake is here. But the board, other than those two, right? So we may not see them until, I'm not kidding you, until almost 10 minutes before the top of the hour. All right. And folks, I'm not here to talk about Las Vegas right now. I am here to do some work.
Thank you.
We're starting.
Good morning. Welcome, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning.
To those who get up early and get out comes the getting of things done. So thank you all for being here.
Recording in progress.
All right, recording in progress. That was the announcement to remind everyone that this is a public meeting and we are on the public record and we are recording this meeting. I want to give a warm welcome both to everyone who came here in the room. Look at this. We are strong and mighty with our attendance, and who's on the Zoom, who we also have commissioners on the Zoom. So we do have a quorum here.
Jackie is on her way back to the
Record.
Yes, exactly. So we have a good, strong presence here today. Thank you all for being a part of this. And I will allow for us to be officially called to order and the presence taken.
Welcome to the meeting of the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum Authority, Friday, November 17th, 2023. It is 8:39 a.m. If members of the public would like to speak on items, when the time to address items on the agenda is announced, you will be prompted to raise your hand so that we may see the number of speakers in the queue. We will note the last name in the container before we take comments. The host will call the identifiers of each raised hand one by one to allow comment. Please do not raise your hand before the invitation to speak. The host will lower the hands of those who raise their hands before the invitation. All members of the public at the time of the announcement will have the opportunity to comment on agenda items. Members of the public will also have the opportunity to comment on items not on the agenda during open forum. During roll call, to limit background noise, please remain muted until your name is called. Unmute to respond, then remute immediately after response. Thank you. Moving on to roll call for today. Please respond present when your name is called. Commissioner Baker.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Halbert.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Iglesias.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Jenkins is excused.
I believe Commissioner Jenkins was joining the Zoom. But, he looks,
And we're trying to get Commissioner Miley in. Is he? Yeah, we're bringing him in now.
okay, Commissioner Jenkins is on his way.
He's on his way. Okay. Commissioner Thompson.
Good morning.
Good morning. Present.
Present.
Thank you. Commissioner Bukowski.
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Miley is having technical difficulties. And then Chair Kaplan.
Here, and good morning. And by the way, of course, good morning is also a way of saying I am here. So we accept that as well. Thank you, everyone. Good morning. We have a quorum, and more. And I also want to appreciate the presence of Oakland City Administrator Justin Johnson. Thank you so much for being with us. And of course, our fearless leader, who happens to be former Oakland City Manager, Henry Gardner. Thank you all so much for being here this morning. And we were trying to get Vice Chair Miley into the Zoom. Is he on yet? Or we can go on and as we work to get him on. Thank you so much. We may proceed with the agenda.
Next item on the agenda is open forum. For members of the public who wish to speak for open forum, please raise your hand. I see 2 members of the public with their hands raised.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And so at this time, we are taking public comment on open forum. Open forum is for items that are not on the agenda. I would also note that we have several items that are on the agenda, including our discussion of the creation of an advisory board and a discussion of enhanced infrastructure finance districts, among other things. And so if you wanted to speak on any of those items, you can wait till we call those items and there will be another opportunity to raise your hands. And so for now, please just keep your hand up if you wanted to speak at this moment, which is open forum items not on the agenda. And each speaker will have 2 minutes.
Abraham, you will have 2 minutes to speak.
Good morning, everybody. I simply want to say, don't believe any doom and gloom that doesn't come out of this room. We have the ability to rebuild our sports industry, our meetings, incentives, convention, and entertainment industry. There's no better organization I can think of that's tasked with this capability than the one that's represented by the people right here in this room. So please don't get down. Take it as a challenge. Oakland has come back before. Oakland can come back again, and Oakland will come back again. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next person in the queue with their hand raised has the last name of Behrens. You're allowed to speak.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commission members and staff. Thank you for a minute of your time. This is Lindsay Behrens, President of Oakland Roots and Soul SC. At the October meeting, Executive Director Gardner reported that the staff would be pursuing events for the 2025 season at the Coliseum. Oakland Roots and Soul are very interested in serving as an anchor tenant of the Coliseum in 2025, while we continue to pursue construction of a modular stadium at the Malibu site. We are very excited about this opportunity. It would be an honor to carry on the tradition of having professional sports teams in Oakland call the Coliseum its home. The Coliseum's proximity to public transportation, its connection to the community, and its soccer-ready layout make it a great location for our games. Playing at the Coliseum would more than double our fan capacity, allowing more of our community to attend our games. We are selling out Soul games. We have hit capacity multiple times for our Roots games, and the recent success of our community investment round shows there is more demand for soccer in Oakland and the East Bay. We are continuing to make progress on our proposed interim stadium at the Malibu site. We have submitted our application and we're conducting diligence, building out the detailed stadium plans and engaging community stakeholders. In the course of that work, however, we have encountered some hurdles that may delay our ability to open Malibu in time for the 2025 season. We wanted to take this opportunity to make you aware of our progress on the Malibu site and express our interest in being the anchor tenant at the Coliseum for 2025. We have been engaging with the JPA team over the past few weeks and really appreciate their help educating us on the logistics of playing at the Coliseum. We have more due diligence to undertake, but are encouraged by the discussions to date. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So again, that was from our leadership of the Roots and Soul soccer clubs, which are wonderful community institutions who are working to build their long-term future in Oakland in the fastest growing sport in the world. So thank you so much. And we'll look forward to further discussions about having soccer here, having activity here, and having Roots and Soul specifically here, and we so appreciate you calling in. I'll just note, if anyone's hearing feedback, there does seem to be some sort of loud machine operating over there. I don't know if that's coming through in the Zoom acoustics, but we have a variety of activities going on around here, as of course does help with our development, but if folks are getting a little feedback. So thank you for that. We do now have Vice Chair Miley in the Zoom waiting room. If we can admit him, please, and then we can count him present.
He's as a panelist now.
Good morning, Vice Chair Miley. Okay. And so were there any other speakers for open forum?
At this time, there's no other speakers with their hands raised.
Okay, thank you to the speakers, and we may proceed to the next item.
Item number 4 on the agenda is approval of the minutes.
Colleagues, are there any questions or a motion on the minutes?
So move. Second.
All right, we may, are there any public speakers on the minutes?
For members of the public wishing to speak on approval of the minutes, please raise your hand. At this time, I do not see anyone from the public with their hand raised.
Okay, we may call the roll on the minutes.
For item number 4, approval of the minutes, motion by Bukasin, second by Baker. I'll take the roll. Commissioner Baker, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you. Commissioner Halbert,
Aye.
Commissioner Iglesias,
Aye.
Commissioner Thompson.
Aye.
Commissioner Bukasin,
Aye.
Vice Chair Miley,
Aye.
and Chair Captain.
Aye.
That is 7 ayes. Next item on the agenda is reports, 5A Executive Director Report.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Gardner.
Good
You have
morning
the floor.
indeed, Madam Chair and Commissioners. At your last meeting during open forum, there was a suggestion that the Commission consider the creation of, and I think the reference was to a sports and entertainment committee. Under your existing legislation, the Joint Exercise of Powers Agreement that was amended, I believe, in 1996, it does provide for creating an advisory board. It doesn't specify a topic necessarily. It is pretty broad. And it provides for a membership up to 20. In order for us to proceed with a resolution, if that is your intent, we need some further guidance and direction from, and clarification from the board. One is, while the legislation provides for up to 20 members, is it the intent to create an advisory board of a lesser number? And the next, not necessarily in order of importance, but a question does arise. How would the board be staffed, if at all? Most of the boards and advisory committees created by both the city and the county have some staff support, but that's an open question. The council will need to determine whether or not the Brown Act would apply. And I have posed that question to our council. I don't know if they're prepared to respond to that today. And then what happens when the Joint Powers Authority ceases to exist? I say all of that to remind you that when the Joint Exercise of Powers Agreement was created, there were 3 major sports franchises here at the complex. 2 have left, and the 3rd one is approaching the exit ramp. So when we think about this subject, we need to think about what specific areas would the board like for this advisory board to focus on. I mentioned the issue of the Joint Powers Authority ceasing to exist at some point, the Joint Exercise of Powers Agreement doesn't have an expiration date. Generally, what governs how long you have to stay in business are the bond covenants. The bond covenants say that the Joint Powers Authority may not cease to exist as long as the bonds are outstanding. We are on schedule to retire all of the bonds as of February 2026. There is another matter that needs to be taken into consideration long range. For the first 2 years, not necessarily so, but anything beyond that. The county has an executed disposition agreement with Coliseum Way Partners, also known as the Oakland A's, and I just refer to it as the Oakland A's. But as of February 2026, subject to the A's fulfilling all of the requirements of that disposition agreement, and barring any judicial decision that would invalidate it or amend it, barring that, if the A's have fulfilled all of the conditions of that disposition agreement as of February of 2026, there is a new 50% partner. And at that point, the Joint Powers Authority could not continue to exist as it's currently created, because by definition, the Joint Powers Authority is an authority between two public agencies, or it could be among 3 or more public agencies, but it cannot meet the requirements of a Joint Powers Authority if it is a public agency, maybe the city of Oakland at that point, and the A's. So the authority would not be allowed to continue as it's structured. So given all of that, I then will refer to the specific language of the Joint Exercise of Powers Agreement with respect to an advisory board. It reads that the authority may establish a Coliseum Advisory Board of an even number, up to 20 members, to provide to the authority advice and recommendations on any matters it deems appropriate relating to the operation of the Coliseum complex. The City Council of the City of Oakland and the Board of Supervisors of the County of Alameda shall each appoint 1/2 the members of the Coliseum Advisory Board. Each member of the advisory board shall serve a term of 2 years and may be reappointed. Excuse me. Members of the Coliseum Advisory Board shall receive no compensation for their services and shall have no right to vote on any matters before the authority or to control the operations of the authority or the Coliseum complex. So I bring this matter back to you for further discussion and clarification and direction to the staff. And if it is the decision of the board to proceed with the creation of advisory board with that further guidance and direction, council will be in a position to prepare a resolution to bring back to you for action.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Mr. Gardner, for the very thoughtful report. And so it's been suggested by members of the public that we would create this type of advisory board. I do think you touch on some other issues that we will have to address through some other forum, which is what is the long-term plan for the future of this facility. So even though we're not deciding that today, I do want to acknowledge that that is something we need to deal with. And I would like for us to discuss a future item and figure out which parts are closed session and which parts are open session in terms of, you know, a potential like 5-year plan, because obviously as we're doing the work to continue to market and improve the attractiveness of the venue, to make sure that we have some, you know, longer term vision for how that's going to work will be important. Now, of course, such an advisory board could also give advice into such a discussion, but we will be needing to undertake this question of the longer term future in terms of how are we going to make sure that this stays active and vibrant, that it doesn't become abandoned blight, that it does continue to generate jobs and generate revenue. So all of those things will need to be dealt with. In terms of the immediate question of creating an advisory board, I do think we could work to have appointments made if we take the steps now to set it up, to have appointments made in January of 2024, since it's a 2-year term, so that we would know that body could at least sit for 2 years, regardless of what does or doesn't happen in February 2026. And then we can be undertaking the process of what are our plans for beyond February 2026. Do we need to amend our joint operating agreement? Are there other parties with whom we need to be having discussions to bring back? But so we would be able, if we feel that it's worth it, and I think it certainly could be, to have a body that could give advice as we go through that process, and then potentially could then continue to exist beyond February 2026, depending what we decide in that interim. But at least since it's a 2-year term, they'd be able to all serve for a term and give advice as we go through that process. If we were to start it in January or February of 2024, the language allows up to 20 members, but does not require 20 members.
That is correct.
I would suggest that 20 members might be too many to be effective, and that we might consider 8 members that would mirror this body, and be a number that could be handled. I know we don't have a written opinion yet from the lawyers, but I would bet that this will be a Brown Act body, because if the representatives are formally appointed by a governmental body, typically such boards are treated as Brown Act bodies. So I think if we want to do this, we should assume that we have to comply with the Brown Act for it and be prepared to set up the meetings accordingly, like these ones. And so it would then require staffing similar to how these meetings are set up and staffed in order to be Brown Act compliant. And so with that, I open it to my colleagues for suggestions, questions, or thoughts on the matter. Yes, sir.
Henry, do you have any, so I understand the landscape today is different from 1995, but do you have any sense of what you think the intent was when this was added to the agreement? Like what they thought the advisory board would do?
I was not around or involved in any way in 1996, so I can't speak to that. Looking back, however, for 27 years, for whatever reason, the JPA never established this advisory board. I think that it may have been at the time that the city and the county obligated themselves to tremendous expenditure to completely refurbish both of these facilities. There may have been a thought of how to further enhance the use of it. The stadium, of course, was being used by both the Raiders and the A's, but there were still opportunities for other events during times when that was not the case. The Warriors were occupying the arena. How many days? 40 some days. I can't remember. But a good portion of the calendar year. And we were actively looking for ways to have events in the arena during that time. I think that as time went on, there was enough robust activity here at the complex that no further consideration was given to that. But I can't speak to that definitively. I can say that for 27 years, though, the JPA never activated this provision.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from the board?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think seems like a pretty exciting opportunity to just get different ideas about the complex move forward and everything. I think it would be nice to have the connection to some of the things that are already happening in Oakland, especially in East Oakland with the Oakland Thrives work and the Rise East initiative. I mean, there's already a network of organizations that are there that I think could be, it'd be great to have their voice in some of these decisions. You know, I think Blue Meridian's invested $50 million in the effort, and I think they're raising another $50 million. So there are resources there, but I just think it would be nice to have that kind of connection since it's happening right here in East Oakland as well. So I'll just throw that out for ideas. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I support the formation. I think it's important, one, to have community voices
And I think it's important to have insight from those who are really committed to seeing this particular facility thrive. And everyone is connected in different ways. And if they are willing to bring their resources to bear and to do the work, I don't see anything but a benefit. Of course, we recognize the outstanding questions that need to be answered, and we expect those to be answered. But since we're talking about an interim period, if they were to be appointed by January 2024, I'm waffling on that because the holiday season comes and we know how we are when the holiday season comes. But if that is the intent, I don't see any issue with moving forward. I think it would benefit us, particularly having a community.
Thank you. And to be fair, they could be appointed in February 2024 to give
Yes.
people time to have their
Yes.
holiday season and then still be able to appoint people. So, yes. Go ahead.
No, thanks, Madam Chair. I agree with the sentiment that we're hearing on the board. I think it's a good idea. Would just ask that the representation is thought through in terms of who's on the board,
Mhm.
whether it's regional or any other type of demographic considerations, so that we have a diverse board. But I support it. I think everyone's saying the right things in terms of let's make sure we understand what the community needs are right now. And hopefully that board can provide that insight. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
And if I could add one more thing, I would also want to be clear that there would need to be real clarity around purpose and intent. Because as a community member, it is frustrating to gather and feel like the ideas that you're actually generated are not going to be taken seriously or considered. And so I think one of the ways we can avoid that is being really clear about what we feel the role of this particular board will be and what contribution we expect them to make. So there aren't any false expectations set up around what will happen as a result.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think we have some of our members who are on Zoom wish to speak.
Yes, Chair Kaplan, I'll echo and lift up the comments of my colleagues. I think very wise to echo clarity of purpose, to echo the need to bring in the community's viewpoints. Remember, we work for them. They elect us. They're the boss. And so let's listen to the community, and I think we'll be better off and be able to make better decisions for it. So I'm in support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anybody else on the Zoom?
One more question.
Commissioner McCutcheon.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. It would be a phenomenal idea if the current ownership was going to stay for 5 or 10 years, the structure, but considering it's going to change in 2 years, most likely, then I have a little hesitation, only because it's an expenditure. If it was an expenditure, then I think it's a great idea. If ownership structure was going to stay for 5 to 10, I think it's a great investment. But considering it's going to be, everything's going to change most likely in 2+ years. I'm a little hesitant regarding the budget, that would be assigned to it, and whether or not that money could be better spent. I don't know what that number is, so I think I'd love to see that first.
Cool, thank you. And of course, we don't yet know what the future will hold, and there will be ongoing work undertaken to ensure that there is a vibrant future here, but we recognize that that is a known unknown. And then in terms of costing, Mr. Garner, do you have that information, or do you want to pull that together and bring it back next time?
Based on the language of this provision and what I have heard today, the cost is probably de minimis, because I don't hear in this, first of all, whatever the advisory board recommends is subject to your approval. So the cost is basically their meeting or noticing the Brown Act. If they require some staff's support, we're not prepared to engage in original research. We can't do that even for the board. So quite frankly, I see it as pretty de minimis. If the advisory board comes back with a recommendation that we should save the stadium and invest $200 million, that will be fascinating. But all of that discussion would come not only here, it would land at City Hall and at the County Board of Supervisors. So I'm not envisioning that, quite frankly. What I think is being suggested here is that we create a vision for what this might look like and go beyond the vision, I would hope, if we're going to engage in this, and talk about what kinds of things would be required to make that vision a reality, but not coming up with grandiose ideas about tearing down buildings and rebuilding them. I mean, they can come up with that, but that would be a recommendation with some real implications.
Well, thank you so much for that. Yes, part of this body could help define recommendations for the way forward for the beyond 2026 vision as well. So given what we've heard, and I think do we have additional Zoom comments? Okay, let's go to that.
Commissioner Miley has his hand raised.
Good morning, Commissioner Miley.
Thank you. The attorneys haven't weighed in, so the creation of this body, is it subject to just the JPA, or does it have to get Board of Supervisors and City Council approval? When will we get a sense of the budget for this body, even if it is just a nominal amount? And then when will, as Commissioner Thompson pointed out, when will we get a sense of the scope and purpose and responsibilities of this body? Are we anticipating getting that next month, January? When will we see that? And then once again, do we know if this needs to go through the Board of Supervisors as well as the City Council?
Thank you so much. I'm happy to have Henry Gardner or council, if they're here, add to this. But per our joint exercise of power agreement, the City Council would appoint half of the members and the Board of Supervisors would appoint half of the members, which means for this body to come into existence, it would require a vote of the City Council and a vote of the County Supervisors to appoint members. And my thought would be to ask Mr. Gardner to bring back an item at our next meeting, laying out sort of the creation of such a body to us in terms of how that would work. Are people comfortable with 8 members? You know, we have the right to go up to 20, but I think 20 would be hard to manage. And staff. And then assuming that there will be costs to put on the meeting similar to the cost to put on these meetings, right? They'll need to be noticed. You'll want to have the tables and the chairs and the microphones and such.
So through the chair, so if that's the case, this comes back to us in December, then let's suppose it does get approved by us, then it's got to be agendized by the City Council and by the Board of Supervisors and go through that process and be vetted as well.
That is correct. And the City Council and the Board of Supervisors would have to appoint actual people, right? Not just approve of the concept, but actually would have to each name 4 people to it.
So you anticipate that, I mean, I'm just being realistic, that this body won't be appointed anytime soon.
I think our hope was that if we can come in December with the framework, that then the City Council and the Board of Supervisors could appoint actual people by February.
Yeah. Well, I think you're being a bit optimistic, but I'm just trying to put a little reality on the table here, knowing how things go in the city and in the county. But we can try.
Well, and I also think, given that this is coming to us today just as an informational item, this is something that we can ponder on and then can bring it back with more structure and sort of a how it would work at our next meeting. And then can decide whether we feel it's worth it to then forward that request to the city and the county to undertake. Okay. Are there any other comments on this item? Are there any public comments?
Members of the public wishing to speak on Executive Director 5A, creation of advisory board, please raise your hand. I see 2 members of the public, Abraham and Jones, with their hands raised.
All right, 2 minutes each.
Mr. Abraham, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. As the person who quite may very well be the only one in this room who was actually there when the Sports Advisory Board concept was formed, Ezra Rapport came up with the idea, and it was introduced to us Wednesday, January 17th, 1996, a meeting with myself, Louis Cohen, who represented Ignacio de la Fuente, who was our council president at the time, and I forgot Valerie's last name, who worked for Larry Reed. And we went over every aspect of operation that had to do with the Coliseum, the Raiders, and also this restructuring that was called for originally by Ignacio de la Fuente after the bonds went south, if you will. The idea was, if you remember, our original Coliseum board consisted of such luminary business people as Mary Warren. And the idea was to simply provide a space for them. It wasn't supposed to cost any money or have a budget or anything like that. They would simply be there precisely as advisory. That's really it. And so it was a way of appeasing. It was a sort of a politically appeasing device, which I thought was pretty genius at the time by Ezra. But unfortunately, for a host of reasons that I think provide a pretty good book, weren't implemented. There was only one person who consistently pushed for it to be adopted, bless you. And that's the person who's talking right now. That's why it was expanded to what you see right now in terms of the business representatives, because we never explored it. We didn't test it to determine how a model would work in actual practice for a number of reasons that are no longer of concern or shouldn't be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dones, you have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you very much. Alan Dones speaking. I'd like to, at the risk of sounding a little bit self-serving, but actually not, I would just want to weigh in. It probably goes without saying that I think such an advisory board is a great idea. I just would emphasize that having adequate representation of land use professionals across the spectrum of aspects of land use would be very, very important. The economic redevelopment of the Coliseum site is the greatest mitigant of the departure of the sports franchises, the greatest economic facilitator of equity and inclusion, especially for East Oakland residents that have not only been left out, but also able to really play a key role going forward. And for all of this to happen, you know, and importantly, being able to accomplish a permanent home for the Roots, attract major future sports franchises, I think really making sure that we create a foundational strategy that allows for the highest and most robust land use, outcomes will be extremely important. And so I would just suggest and urge, again, what's probably the obvious, that, you know, those areas of land use planning, economics, market fundamentals, and legal be at the table and representative as part of the committee that comes together. Thank you so much for considering yet again another great idea. Thanks.
That was the last speaker in the container with their hand raised.
Thank you so much. Okay, so unless there's any other comments at this time on this item, I think we've had some great suggestions, and we'll bring it back with more specifics about how it would work at our next meeting. And with that, Mr. Gardner, you can proceed with the next section of the report.
Thank you. The second item I have on the agenda, they will be supported by Greg Hatch and Nicole Strange. At the time that we present the annual budget, we spend a lot of time talking about the revenues and the expenditures, but not a lot of focus on the capital projects. And there's a long list of them. Some of them are quite significant. Some of them are really more repairs than capital improvements. But I think it's worthwhile for us to go through not the entire list, but to highlight the significant ones so that the board is aware of the kinds of capital projects we undertake every year. We budgeted a little over $7 million for this current year. Past experience tells us that not all of those will come to fruition during the calendar year, not because we don't have enough money, but because of the timing of undertaking those, finding the contractors, if we have to put them out to public bid. Some of the work gets delayed for a variety of reasons. But we have presented to you as part of the budget an amount we believe sufficient to maintain the integrity of the physical plant here, both the stadium and the arena. So with that, I would like to ask Greg Hatch and Nicole Strange if they would take us through this list and highlight the most significant ones of those.
Good morning. First, I want to apologize. We have a very exciting comedy show loading in right now for our Gabriel Iglesias show tonight. There's a handful of tickets left if anyone's interested in purchasing any. So in the packet, you will see all of the capital projects that were approved for this year. I will just highlight a few of the major ones. We'll go over some of those. We'll start with the stadium. The resurfacing concourses and waterproofing. This is repaving sections of the concourse to waterproof them and fix any cracks or holes. Spall repairs. The engineers are currently working with the structural engineer to put together a list of affected areas along with specifications to repair that can be put out to contractors for bidding purposes. They're mostly focusing on the East 300s. Soil stabilization. A structural engineer is using ground penetrating radar and a soil compaction drop test to find the degree in which the soil has settled on the north side of the stadium east side club. They will then put together a description of their findings along with specifications to stabilize the soil where needed. We will then use these findings and specifications to secure a contractor to perform the stabilization work. This stemmed from last winter's storms and is a continuation from the work that was done on the south side of the East Side Club. And now we're focusing on the north side. Elevator upgrades for the stadium and the arena. Working on proposals for door operator upgrades and or replacement, and also replacement air conditioning units for the elevator machine rooms. Emergency power outfield pump room. Working with multiple vendors on generator pricing. Engineers are also working with an electrical contractor on a possible tie into the existing generator depending on the load. Electrical testing and repairs. Most of the vendors performing this type of testing will have to isolate the equipment being tested with, which makes the proposal process a bit more challenging. This is additional testing from last year's storm damage to the stadium power. I don't know if everyone remembers those huge storms at the end of December, beginning of January, but it caused a world of hurt next door. We're still dealing with some of that. Switching to the arena.
Before you go on, let me remind the board that this information is in your packet, so you can follow along as Ms. Strange is highlighting the key areas. Thank you.
As mentioned previously, the new arena point of sale equipment. This project will begin in early December and take about 2 to 3 weeks to finish. It will be completed by the Anita Baker Show. Norcore arena floor. This is supplemental pieces of our arena subfloor to replace pieces that are worn or damaged. The pieces expand and contract when used to cover the ice and can begin to warp with the weight of the stage and forklift traffic. New rolling stage, this one's very exciting. This will be a great addition for shows, and we're hoping to get the new stage early next year. It will help load in and load outs be faster and more seamless. Roof center section, this is a big one. The RFP process is proving to take much longer than expected to get off the ground. We're working diligently with the city attorney's office, county attorney's office, and the vendor on this project. Elastomeric coating. This project will occur after the completion of the center roof replacement, so the coating would not be damaged during re-roofing. We have another bucket called shared. Parking lot maintenance. New asphalt is very expensive, and every year a portion of the capital budget is applied to parts of the parking lot that need the most repair. Network hardware upgrades. This includes Wi-Fi upgrades, access points, controllers, switches, IPTV, computers, printers, IT capital expenses, and more. CCTV upgrades and repairs. This involves the security camera upgrades, additions, and servers dedicated to security cameras. 3-stream waste bins, phase 3. Phase 3 will focus on the outside plaza, as well as supplementing the main concourse and upper concourse of the arena, including waste, recycling, and compost. Plaza membrane. This project was actually supposed to start this week, but due to the rain and the weather, it's pushed back to mid-December. But the asphalt in between the stadium and the arena on the plaza will be dug up and replaced, fixing any cracks or holes. Any questions on any other capital projects? I know we have a robust agenda today, so I just hit the high ones.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it. Let's take board member questions.
Yeah, wonderful report, Nicole. Looks like a lot of work went into this. 2 questions. One, do you have any thoughts around risk of something that maybe didn't get included on this list? Are there any items that wish list items that didn't make it, and is there any risk to that? And the second question is, could you just briefly describe the RFP process to make sure that we have an inclusive process on the various contractors?
So every year, the team comes up with a wish list of everything they can think of. And it's millions and millions and millions of dollars. And then they prioritize it 1, 2, and 3, and it whittles it down to what we have here on this list. And this is what was approved for this year. There are always things that we don't get it this year. We know what's going on the list of next year. I think risk and safety are the #1 priorities. So those things are always in a level 1 priority and always get in. So as of right now, to answer your question, no. I would say a lot of these projects are very exciting to us. I'd say to the common guest or fan, you might not notice them, but you would notice them if they aren't working, like elevators and concourses. So some of them aren't pretty, but they're absolutely needed. For the RFP process, so anything over $15,000 requires 3 bids, especially for something like the roof project, which is, I believe, 1.6 million budgeted. That is going through a whole RFP process, and we're working with Jamila and Andrea and our vendor in putting together a composite RFP bidding package that will go out to be publicly bid.
That is the roof is, as you can see from the list, the singularly biggest expenditure. And so the process, the RFP process for that is exhaustive. We are a public agency and we're bound by the rules for a public agency. And this one requires a lot of work before we can even put it out to make sure that we have followed all of the state requirements for public bidding major project like this. And this is the largest one that we have undertaken since I've been here. So we've had to actively engage the help of the city's public works department, where they have the experience and engineers, and they're doing this on a regular basis. Both the city attorney's office and the county council's office, much more elaborate than anything we've undertaken before. So the process has taken a while. The second part that I would mention, I think there are two projects on this list that are being funded not from the normal allocation of our budget process, but resulted from the refunding that we did for on the arena. You may recall that 2 years ago, we refunded the outstanding debt, and that resulted in a net savings of a little over $2 million. And that is the source for this arena replacement, and I think also for the plaza membrane, if we have enough money, because it's taken us a long time to get the RFP process out to bid for the arena project. And in the meantime, unfortunately, the cost certainly has gone up. Labor costs have gone up, but probably more than that, the cost of borrowing has gone for the contractors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for bringing this item. I know we still have some more things to go, so any other comments?
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you,
Thank you.
great work.
Thank you.
You can go to the next item,
You have your next item. Did you cover your other item? Because I skipped it.
General Manager's report.
Yes.
We'll let
your
the meeting
events.
allowed to be
Do you
called
want to say
in.
anything about highlight your events?
Hang on, let her call it in.
Item 5B, General Manager Board Reports.
Thank you. Welcome again.
The added events, Disney on Ice, February 22nd to 25th, 2024. IVE, March 16th, 2024. One not on your list is PBR, March 30th, 2024. That just got announced.
Ooh,
We Them Ones Comedy
PBR.
Tour, April 6th, 2024. Los Angeles Azules, April 13th, 2024. Melanie Martinez, May 12th, 2024. And then very exciting, it was just announced a couple weeks ago, we will be hosting to be determined events surrounding the NBA All-Star Game. That'll be in February 2025. So we're very, very, very excited about that. And then one note, tomorrow's show, Pancho Barraza, has postponed until March 2nd, 2024.
Thank you so much. And just for those who may not have heard the news when it was announced, the NBA All-Star Game event coming here is a big deal. These are expected to be very major events, and that while you may have seen in the news announced San Francisco as sort of the primary location of the NBA All-Star Games, that simultaneously was announced our facility as the additional location for NBA All-Star events. So even though a lot of the press coverage talked about that some of the main events are going to be in San Francisco, significant, large, well-attended events will be here as well as part of that package of events.
Yeah, we're most likely going to get the Celebrity All-Star Game, an HBCU basketball game, a G League game. So there'll be a lot of events here surrounding the actual All-Star Game that's hosted offsite.
Yep, Bay Area regional hosting of the NBA All-Star Game Series. Yeah, so that will be in February 2025. So save the date to come watch the HBCU game, Celebrity All-Star Game in Oakland. So great. Any questions on this item?
I have a clarifying question. And hi, good morning again.
Good morning.
On your report with the list of events that are listed, those things that are in red, major capital projects for the current fiscal year, complete list and closed, and we have the list. So am I to understand that these are things that need to occur? Is it for these things to take place or for these things? Can you just clear up the correlation for me?
Yes, they should be listed on the next.
Froze.
fiscal year.
by these timeframes for these events. So that's not the correlation, it's just to be done,
No.
okay,
Yeah.
all right. I
No,
want that
no
clear.
correlation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any speakers on the Zoom on this item?
For members of the public wishing to speak on this item, please raise your hand. After your name is called, you will have 2 minutes to speak. I see Mr. Abraham with his hand raised.
Okay,
You have 2 minutes to speak.
Yeah, thank you. Briefly, I'd like to suggest that Visit Oakland will be interfaced with the JPA staff and event manager and the manager so that we can have a set of room blocks and a package that we can essentially have as part of the All-Star game so that we don't just have the event here, but we also capture their dollars to be spent here through room stays. Thank you.
thank you so much for that. No, I think that is a great point because of course people can come stay in hotels here and eat in restaurants here for the whole All-Star series. Fortunately, since that's 2025, we have some time to do that. And so I don't know if the staff here are already connected with Visit Oakland or have that perhaps, I believe, already going on, but let's make sure to collaborate on bringing side events and the use of the local hotels and restaurants.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This concludes that item. We may read in the next item.
Next item on the agenda is discussion and presentation, enhanced infrastructure financing district.
Thank you so much. So again, for those of you watching or listening at home, as well as in the room, the documents are in the printed packet that you have on enhanced infrastructure financing district. We had a bit of a discussion about this at our last board meeting, and board members expressed a strong interest in working together to move this forward. I want to really thank Vice Chair Miley, who made the point that it would be useful to talk about this together at the JPA. To create an EIFD like this would require both a vote of the Oakland City Council and a vote of the Alameda County Board of Supervisors. And as we have both city council members and county supervisors here, as well as the experience with the history of this site, which is one of the sites under consideration, it was suggested that this would be a fruitful place to have that discussion and to help build that level of unity around the vision for this so that it then can go to the city council and the county supervisors with some already clarity and unity around it. So let me just briefly explain what is in your agenda packet, and we are showing this on the Zoom. So as we mentioned last time, both the city council and the county board of supervisors would have to adopt formal resolutions. And so in order to help that process move forward and help everybody move toward clarity, I have put in today's JPA packet a draft. These are draft, these are not finalized, and they're not attorney finalized. These are draft resolutions showing the type of thing that would need to be adopted by the Board of Supervisors and the type of thing that would need to be adopted by the City Council. So again, this is what's showing on the screen now is just to let you know what type of thing we would need to adopt. The first page that is showing here, this is a sample of a Board of Supervisors resolution to approve an EIFD. And if we can scroll down 4 pages. So this is in your packet. Again, it's downloadable on the website. And then here we have, after the first document is the Board of Supervisors sample resolution. The second document is a sample resolution to create a public financing authority. As both Executive Director Gardner and also commenters explained last time, you create a public financing authority to oversee an EIFD, and that is made up of representatives of the city government, the county government, and members of the public. So what we have, the second document here in the packet is a sample of a resolution to create a PFA. Again, thank you, Vice Chair Miley, for your input. The PFA is required to be made up of more governmental officials than public members. So this draft is based on it being 2 city members, 2 county supervisor members and 3 members of the public for a total of 7 people. So this is that draft for how we would create a public financing authority. And then if we scroll down 2 more pages, we'll see the final sample resolution that's in the packet, which is what the city council would have to pass to adopt an EIFD on the city side. And so it would require both the city council resolution and the county supervisor resolution and the resolution creating the public finance authority. But we now have right here before us drafts of all 3. We have sent ours to our city attorneys. For the county folks on the line, there is a sample county one in here as well that you can take and share with the rest of your team as we work to move this forward. And then the next page is the map of the Coliseum. Let's see if we can get that Coliseum area map up. Oh, you have that. We have that as a separate document. And while they're pulling that map up, just to share that the thought is the EIFD would have more than one location. There's a couple locations in West Oakland that are being identified, that have been identified for redevelopment and revitalization. The state law does allow for a multi-site EIFD. They don't have to be touching, so we can adopt an EIFD that has 3 or 4 specified locations. And one of the specified locations we would anticipate would be the Coliseum area. This is a map of the Coliseum area specific plan area. So this is bigger than just the Coliseum properties. This shows the boundaries of the area that was studied and approved under the Coliseum area specific plan. And I provided that for illustration. It's also, there's also a printout of it in the paper packet, in the downloadable packet on the website for our purposes, so that we could look at it and discuss what geographic boundaries we might recommend seeing for the Coliseum area. I'm not necessarily suggesting that the boundaries have to be the same as the Coliseum area specific plan area. There's also been a suggestion that we focus in a little more than that, such as just the area between Hagenberger and 66, as well as some other suggestions. But this map helps us get a sense of the area, and we can hone in on determining which components we would potentially want to have in an EIFD. And then the other thing that I think is important to add is what we can do with the money. There have been repeated changes in state law that expand the ability to cover different things with an EIFD, including helping struggling local small businesses has been added as a use. Providing childcare facilities has been added as a use. In addition, we can, and I believe should, use an EIFD to fund core public needs. We know the city has been talking about needing some new facilities, like the new crime lab, for example, with state-of-the-art technology. We know the county has been looking at having new facilities for a variety of public purposes to replace some buildings that are old and falling apart. And so those types of direct public buildings could also become a part, and I believe would be a valuable part of what we could do here. Now, after those maps, the next thing in the packet is a PowerPoint presentation from Henry Gardner that we talked about last time, but is here again for a refresher, and also because we wanted to make sure everybody would have it. And then we received from a experienced member of the public additional comments, which I agreed to insert in the form of a subsequent PowerPoint so that everybody could have that input in written form as well. And so let me first give the floor to Mr. Gardner to add anything, as I know you've prepared the initial report, and then I will also call on the other members of the board and the members of the public to add as well.
I really have nothing further at this point to add to the PowerPoint presentation. I did make some additional comments that were not on the PowerPoint, and I will say 2 sentences about those. One is the EIFD requires practically 2 taxing entities. It can be done by 1, but generally that does not leverage enough tax increment for any major improvements. And so as a practical matter, A successful EIFD would require the joint cooperation and collaboration of the city and of the county, because these are the two taxing agencies. And the increment that is used to finance future improvements come from the city and the counties, what otherwise would have gone to their general funds. And so that's always a consideration when the two agencies are considering when and how much of the tax increment they're willing to contribute to these districts. The other comment that I made that was not on the PowerPoint, and the chair has included that in the materials that she has presented, there are several preparatory steps that are required before you even get to this resolution of intention. And that requires the active engagement of the city and the county's principal staff people in finance, in planning, in economic development, and obviously city and county council, SEL. And also will require, as this is proceeding, additional outside consulting advice, sometimes probably very much so, bond counsel, and maybe a financial advisor, and maybe economic advisor to do certain analyses. And clearly, the active involvement of the county's tax assessor once the area is mapped to identify the parcels that would be included and to estimate what the future tax increment might be. So with that, I have no further comments to add.
Thank you so much. And we so appreciate your help and support in this endeavor. Commissioner McCusson, I know you have to leave soon. Did you want to add any comments on this?
No, I'm excited for the opportunities.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, any other comments up here before we go to the folks on the Zoom? Okay, so why don't we go ahead to the folks on the Zoom?
Public comment.
Yes, I mean, there's a bit of overlap, right? Because one of the public commenters did also submit the written public comment, which is here, but I believe he's also on the Zoom with his hand raised.
So members of the public wishing to speak on this item, please raise your hand. Several in the queue. Dones, Abraham, Oakland Renaissance, and Fuller Bryant, and Ray Bobbitt are the names in the queue. Each person have 2 minutes to speak, Chair.
Given the extensiveness of the matter, we will allow up to 4, but I would just note to the public speakers, you don't need to use 4 minutes if you don't have 4 minutes worth of comments, but we will allow up to 4 minutes.
Thank you. Mr. Dones, you're allowed to speak.
Thank you very much, Alan Dones again. Really still full of gratitude for this issue being taken up at this particular stage. Also, feeling encouraged by, the efforts being made by people like Zennie Abraham, putting, really being proactive. This is such an important stimulus. I just want to emphasize the importance and kind of leverage, talk about the term that Henry Gardner used, leverage. Leverage is very, very important in planning this. And, as someone that has, since this legislation been enacted, I've been running numbers, looking at all the different ways this tool can be most valuable and ways in which it can be deceptively look attractive, but not have a lot of impact. A lot of it comes down to that key phrase of leverage. Good example of what I'm talking about is the Aggie Square project that was done where the EIFD was used to spark some really key projects. And it was carefully configured and engineered so that those key projects could go forward, which then created a lot of surrounding economic development. A lot of times, if you get one person, one project up and dancing, then everybody at the party gets up and starts dancing. And I'm talking in terms of investors, prospective tenants, et cetera. So as we're going forward, I think it's really important to include making sure that those key projects are really considered, and the ability to move quickly on them so that the tax increment that's generated could yield maximum benefits that then go to serve those important public objectives, equity and inclusion, providing for those public facilities that need to get built. And I also want to just acknowledge and appreciate the thoughtfulness of the consideration of non-contiguous parcels, because that goes right to that whole point of leverage and making sure that we engineer this in a way so that those key projects happen and they create benefits that benefit the entire city, and that the definition of the map doesn't get so spread out that the benefits are watered down to the point of non-existence. So that's those are my comments, and I just look forward to participating in this process going forward. And again, want to express my gratitude for once again getting this public consideration. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Zennie Abraham. You're allowed to speak.
Thank you very much, and thank you, council member. My vice mayors want to make sure if I'm able to present the section, because there's some adjustments that I had to make to clear up some maladies.
Thank you. Hang on, we're just going to have the staff screen share the document. They're
Thank you.
pulling that up, so it's the one after that.
Thank you.
There we go. Oops. And there it is. That's
Thank
the
you.
one. Okay.
Also, members of the public, this is available at zenniereport.com. It is the featured post, and I will begin with this. The presentation before the Joint Powers Authority here is written to expand on the October 15th, 2023 Oakland Coliseum JPA Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District discussion. It presents a step-by-step process drawn primarily from EIFD documents for San Jose, Santa Rosa, Sacramento, as well as California EIFD legislation, specifically SB 628 Beal, 2015, SB 293 Skinner, 2019, AB 464 Mullen, 2021, and AB 336 Repluta, 2021. This presentation is also the first document of its kind to present a step-by-step process and takes AB 464 Mullen, 2021 into account. AB 464 Mullen allows the use of tax increment financing revenue to finance programs to help small businesses in the EIFD to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic, nonprofit community facilities, and projects deemed of community-wide significance, depending on how the infrastructure financing plan is written. Regarding tax increment financing, or TIF, this presentation was also based on a calculation process that mates tax increment financing revenue with municipal bond sizing. The tax increment financing revenue stream and debt coverage ratio determine the size of the bond to be issued. The Public Financing Authority can then determine what projects can, quote, fit, unquote, into that revenue envelope as a prelude to the creation of the Infrastructure Financing Plan, or IFP, and the bond issue or bond issues. California EIFD law established in 2014, as you know, the Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District, or EIFD, was established in 2014 by California Senator Jim Beal and signed into law by California Governor Jerry Brown. It is designed to reintroduce tax increment financing to California municipalities to be used as a tool to catalyze the creation of various types of development. This document points to a specific law, AB 336 from 2021, which allows members of a Joint Powers Authority to sit on the Public Financing Authority of Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District. In other words, for the organization to be both JPA and EIFD. It is also based on section 53398.51 of the California Code, and in the following way. If a JPA decides to establish an EIFD, then Section 398.51 of the California Code says it must first create a public financing authority containing its own governing board. California state law is more specific about the Public Financing Authority board's structure than that for a joint powers authority. Assuming that the two or more of the public agencies making up the JPA wishing to create the EIFD themselves have taxation power, then the Public Financing Authority's board must be composed of a majority of the governing legislative bodies, city council, county boards, supervisors, and etc. of every participating government. That is, a majority of the members of the legislative body of the cities, counties, and special districts comprising the board must also serve on the Public Financing Authority, and it is uncompensated service, though reimbursement is allowed. This document, this post here at zenniereport.com as well, lays the groundwork for the creation of the Oakland Alameda County JPA EIFD. Basically, the Public Financing Authority is the governing body of the EIFD as specifically described within the JPA. Here are the steps. 1. Formation team consists of economic development representative, legal counsel, finance advisor, tax increment financing consultant, Oakland Coliseum JPA executive director, manager, city, county, and business representative, and the business task force advisory group that was discussed earlier. Step 2, formation teamwork. Define, refine boundaries. 2, develop preliminary priority funding cost estimate. 3,
Next slide, please.
determine bond size through the chair. I can continue if you wish.
Yep, please continue.
Thank you. Calculate tax increment revenue from EIFD boundary. 5, determine size of bond issue debt service based on tax increment finance revenue and debt coverage ratio, and bond interest rates. 6, size preliminary priority funding project cost estimate with respect to tax increment financing revenue. 7, identify funding sources in addition to tax increment. Step 3, conduct outreach. Elected officials, other taxing entities, affected residents and property owners. Explore potential projects to be funded by the EIFD that would entice participation of the county or other taxing agencies. 6, educate stakeholders about the EIFD, not a new tax, not a lien on property, for example. 6, identify property owners who would advocate for formation. And here is where the business advisor advocacy group or sports advocacy group, as you may call it, helps. Step 4, start Public Financing Authority. 1, determine who sits on the Public Financing Authority. 2, assemble resolution of intention and Public Financing Authority of formation documents based on the Santa Rosa model. A, staff report on EIFD formation to City Council. B, resolution of intention, approve boundaries and list of improvements and projects for City Council vote. C, Public Financing Authority resolution, including infrastructure financing plan for City Council vote. D, City Council votes on B and C as I described, which are, of course, the resolution of intention, the Public Financing Authority resolution, which establishes the Public Financing Authority. Board of Supervisors and City Council each adopt resolutions approving the infrastructure financing plan. Then there's a statement of boundary change filed by Public Financing Authority with the California State Board of Equalization. There's no election acquired unless 25% of property owners protest at the third Public Financing Authority hearing. An enhanced infrastructure financing district is abandoned if over 50% of property owners protest the formation. The JPA approves the infrastructure financing plan by resolution as the next step. And then the other step after that is the Public Financing Authority adopts the infrastructure financing plan and approves the resolution of formation, establishing the EIFD as at the third public hearing. The Public Financing Authority files a, quote, statement of boundary change, unquote, with the California Board of Equalization. Note, unlike old redevelopment districts that utilize tax increment financing, there's no blighted area requirement to establish an EIFD. Step 7, EIFD bonds. Who? The Public Financing Authority makes the decision to sell bonds. When? Public Financing Authority may decide to sell bonds based on tax increment revenue versus project cost needs as expressed in the infrastructure financing plan. The minimum debt coverage ratio for the bond issue would be 125%. Note, minimum. Now, bonds cannot be sold until predetermined level of tax increment is generated that's sufficient to meet annual bond debt service. But tax increment revenue can be collected from the start of establishment of the EIFD and the Public Financing Authority. Tax increment revenue can also be collected on a pay-as-you-go basis. A follow-up on EIFDs and pay-as-go TIF revenue collection. A follow-up is important here. Prior to 2017, EIFDs were not able to collect tax increment revenue on a pay-as-you-go basis. But after 2017 and the amendment for infrastructure financing plan legislation, TIF revenue could be collected on a pay-as-you-go basis as long as it was described in the infrastructure financing plan. For example, the infrastructure financing plan for the Samoa Peninsula Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District, released in 2002, does just that. I won't bother reading that entire paragraph there. I will skip over that, but that makes the point is made there. And then I will go down to read this, simply this, that a note here is very important to understand that in October of 2019, California Governor Gavin Newsom signed AB 116, authorized by Assemblymember Phil Ting, which removes the requirement for enhanced infrastructure financing districts to receive voter approval prior to issuing bonds. The California organization CalEd championed this under SB 128 Beal, and I will continue. So if you see the document online, this is vitally important to those who are doing research. If you see this document called Resource Guide to EIFDs by the California Community and Economic Development Association and dated February 2016, do not use it because it has the old information regarding pay go and says you can't do it. That is wrong, ladies and gentlemen. Now, how bonds are secured is by only tax increment revenue generated within the EIFD, not by the city's general fund. Note, proceeds may be used to fund any public improvement with a useful life of 15 years or more that provides community benefit. Step 8, EIFD eligible public improvements. And this gets to what Vice Mayor Kaplan was saying. Roads, highways, streetscapes, parking facilities, and transit facilities, affordable housing, small businesses impacted by COVID-19 pandemic, internet access services, childcare facilities, libraries, parks, open space and recreational facilities, improvements related to fighting climate change, brownfield restoration and other environmental mitigation, transit priority facilities, sewer, reclamation and water facilities, solid waste facilities, flood control facilities, retention bases, and drainage channels. Following those steps will result in an Oakland Alameda County Coliseum Joint Powers Authority, JPA, EIFD. It will be an existing procedural first step toward the eventual reinvestment wave it will create in Oakland, starting with the Coliseum area in East Oakland. And I thank you very much for your time and particularly your allowance on this, Vice Mayor Kaplan and Supervisor Miley.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. And again, this is in your packet for those who want to read it more closely. Thank you. That was super helpful. Let us call the remaining speakers.
Next speaker in the queue is Oakland Renaissance. You have 4 minutes to speak.
Good morning, everyone. I'm calling to express my wholehearted support for the creation of this EIFD district and also my support for the African American Sports and Entertainment Group that the City of Oakland is currently in an exclusive negotiated agreement with. I wanted to thank Councilperson Kaplan for referencing the 2015 Coliseum Area Specific Plan because I rarely hear anyone really talking about this document anymore. But in 2015, this document was, quote, adopted by the City of Oakland and provides framework for guiding land use and infrastructure improvements, unquote. So I really implore anyone who hasn't done so recently to refamiliarize themselves with the Coliseum Specific Plan. In fact, earlier, Mr. Gardner referenced the disposition agreement between the county and the A's, but it actually states in that disposition agreement that any proposed development on the Coliseum site is governed by and subject to the Coliseum specific plan. So that's how important this document is. And in my opinion, it takes on even more significance with the announcement made by Major League Baseball yesterday as it pertains to the future of the Coliseum site. So again, I want to thank you. I'm in full support of the EIFD district. I believe we owe it to the East Oakland community. We owe it to the AASEG to give them access to every tool available that we're willing to give to the A's, which is why I'm in full support of this district. And also the tenants expressed in the Coliseum specific plan, as well as many of the tenants shown there in the presentation by Zennie Abraham, also fits the criteria of public use. So there is every tool at our disposal to make sure that the Coliseum site is revitalized, that there is a true renaissance in the city of Oakland, and that we look at this moment it is somewhat disparaging, for longtime Oakland residents, but it also presents a tremendous opportunity to rebuild ourselves, to remake ourselves in our own image with people that love this community and want to be here. So let's take advantage of this opportunity and rebuild Oakland to live up to the true potential that we know that it has. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker in the queue, last name Fuller Bryant. You have 4 minutes to speak.
Good morning to you all. My name is Tanya Fuller Bryant, and I am a long-time resident and an employee of many of the tenants that are at the Coliseum. My passion for the Coliseum and the enhancement of the Coliseum is vital. I'm in support of Mr. Ray Bobbitt and the AASEG and also the EIFD to be commended on the enhancement of the Coliseum. We need this. As a longtime homeowner, taxpayer, and employer and employment, our community is in desperate need of enhancement so that people can come back to Oakland. I also wanted to make sure that you knew that I used to be on the committee and also the shop steward, and I was definitely fighting for the Warriors, the Raiders, and the A's to stay at the Coliseum. It's vital that we bring back the Coliseum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker in the queue has the last name of Bobbitt. You're allowed to speak for 4 minutes.
Hi, thank you very much for allowing me to speak. My name is Ray Bobbitt, and I just want to express many of the sentiments and thank this body for entertaining this process, specifically Councilmember Kaplan and Mr. Miley, Supervisor Miley. We appreciate the work that the staff has done. Thank you so much for the presentation, Mr. Gardner, and also for the supplement by Mr. Abraham. There's clearly a tremendous amount of interest in these type of vehicles and tools. We are in a moment where we believe that revitalizing or rebirthing ourselves as a community is critical. And although we, as a native, Oakland native, and a lifelong sports fans of sports teams in Oakland, there's a sense of disappointment. However, at the same time, there's a sense of happiness and excitement for the future. So we're super excited about the prospects. I know that we've been in the community very heavily, and there's a heavy interest and commitment from the community to revitalize this space and use the site as the epicenter of the entire East Bay region. And so we're excited about all the different uses. We're excited about everything that the potential that this holds. This is clearly the most developable site in the country, if not the world. And I say that not to just just as a figure of speech. I mean that literally, based on our infrastructure of transportation, all the commitments that's gone here. So I just want to thank everybody who's a part of this process, everybody who's committed to this process. And ultimately, at the end of the day, we believe that this project and the project of redeveloping the Coliseum will certainly go to help revitalize East Oakland without gentrification and displacement. And so just wanted to thank you and say how excited we are about this process, and we fully support moving it forward. Thank you.
Next speaker in the queue has the last name of McDonald. You're allowed to speak for 4 minutes.
Thank you to the commission and for allowing me to speak. I'm Septina Bobbitt McDonald, also a native of Oakland, and would like to echo many of the sentiments that have been expressed by the public on this forum today. This process is very encouraging and very vital as a tool in support of the plan that has been put forward by the AASEG to redevelopment and revitalization of the Coliseum project. I still have many connections to the community there, and we are all very eager to see this development completed, to start and to be completed as soon as possible to combat the economic challenges that the community faces. It would be wonderful if we could get this process started, completed, and get Oakland back to its former glory. Thank you very much.
The last speaker in the queue has the last name of Langford. You're allowed to speak and you have 4 minutes.
Good morning, members of the commission, and certainly honor to Mr. Ray Bobbitt and the entire AASEG team and family. And we certainly appreciate the leadership of Supervisor Nate Miley, Council Member Rebecca Kaplan, Council Member Reed, and Council Member Jenkins, and the City of Oakland leadership. This is great and historic. Last night I was watching Tim Mullins, and he was talking about how his career was birthed, his professional career was birthed in Oakland, and that Oakland needs something great. And I said, he must didn't learn about the AASEG, been given a great honor to rebirth and do something great that's going to revitalize Oakland and especially East Oakland. And I'm so excited because I'm a longtime Oakland resident, and my career was birthed at the Coliseum with the TOC. And I hope you all don't allow that name to ever leave, because the TOC is historic in birthing basketball, baseball, and football. You know, Oakland sports has revitalized the American professional franchises, especially the TOC. So I support the district for the EIFD, and we appreciate the leadership of this commission, the great work you all are doing to move this process forward. And Oakland and Oaklanders are going to be greater and better for it. Thank you so much.
That is the last person in the queue.
Thank you so much. And I really want to appreciate all the members of this body for allowing us to bring this topic through here. We recognize this will require a vote of the county supervisors and a vote of the city council, but particularly given the importance of making sure that we are planning for a vibrant and active future for this large public site, and that we have here the opportunity for city leadership and county leadership and community leadership to come together. I think this is a really important and useful conversation. Let me just add, in terms of the multiple sites, we're certainly very thankful for the state law that allows us to make an EIFD of multiple separate sites. And one of the ways we can leverage that here is that, so the city, for example, is looking for new and better locations for the facilities that are currently at 7th and Broadway, where we have an old police administration building, we need a new crime lab and other new facilities. Those new facilities could be built here, then the site of that old building can also be redeveloped, can become mixed use with housing and retail and commercial. So we're also looking at including a major mixed use project that is immediately adjacent to the West Oakland BART station as part of this project. And so we have the capacity to create thousands of units of housing, as well as developing new government functions. We know the county is researching ways to relocate and revitalize some of their public buildings that could be built here, which also would serve to improve access for people in East Oakland and the surrounding area to be able to get access to those needed services. And this can include building, as has been pointed out, these government buildings, whether it's crime lab, courthouse, other government facilities, but also childcare, affordable housing, other community activities, as well as things that improve pedestrian access, transit access, and more. So I think it's a really exciting opportunity for us to undertake. I have sent the documents to the city attorney. The sample county resolution is also in this packet. So I think I heard from our county leaders that you'll follow up in terms of any next steps needed for the county attorneys to review and double check these. As Zennie Abraham pointed out, who's been following these issues for many years, the law around what's allowed has changed several times in the last few years. So we did provide drafts that should comply with that, but we do of course want the legal teams at the city and the county to go through this and report back so that we make sure that anything we move forward has all of the latest changes in law incorporated into that. And of course, here at the Coliseum, we have not only the JPA property, we also have the Malibu property that abuts us. We have a bunch of properties along San Leandro that abut us, all of which could be incorporated into an EIFD to allow for a broader revitalization. So thank you so much for giving the time and attention to this. And it would be my hope and intention once legal gets a chance to look at it, and we also circling back with the staff on some of the facilities that would be included, that we could bring something back which has any revisions needed so that anything that would go to the city and the county would have those latest revisions. And then let me see if there's any further comments or questions from the group here.
Commissioner
Colleague?
Halbert has his hand raised.
Commissioner Halbert.
Yes, thank you, Chair Kaplan. I think this is a great opportunity before us. I note that the county and the city staff, I believe, have already gone through a bit of an exercise to get up to speed on the latest as it regards to EIFD, because we looked into this with the Howard Terminal site. One thing that I recommended at that time, it did not happen, and I believe things could have gone quicker or smoother or more productively, would be to have an ad hoc committee. And I'm going to recommend that we think about that. You take back to your city council, I'll take back to the board, creating a joint committee between the JPA is the JPA. It's great. We have a partnership with members of the council on it, members of the board on it. But I believe that we need to have a joint liaison committee, 2 members of the Board of Supervisors, 2 members of the county city council with their staff, all in the room at the same time, whether it's a meeting that's duly noticed or a series of meetings that's duly noticed, or if we can do it as an ad hoc committee that does not have to be duly noticed and just meet temporarily. Doesn't matter how we do it. But I note that as we talk about the Malibu site, the practice facility in Alameda, this EIFD project, that we get a lot of he said, she said, yes it is, no it isn't. I would like the city council, the supervisors, both staffs, all inclusive, to be in one room at the same time to discuss this. I'll take what we've talked about today back to the board, back to our county council. We'll bring as many resources and knowledge as we can But if we're not all in the room at the same time, I don't think anything will get done. So, and I don't mean to sound pessimistic. Of course, things will get done, but it may not get done as efficiently or effectively as we would want it to be. This is going to require clear direction, resolve, and unanimity among our boards and our staff. So that's what I would recommend, and I'll stop there and see what others think. But I do believe that we have to get in the room at the same time with everybody.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Halbert. I think that is a brilliant idea. Are you volunteering to be on this ad hoc meeting?
You know that I always do what I'm asked to do, so I would do that if needed. I would extend the offer to others if they prefer, but sure.
Thank you. No, I think that's a very good idea, and certainly the more that our teams are collaborating, the more effective we will be on the whole range of issues. Supervisor Miley, would you like to be part of such a thing? Supervisor Miley on the line?
We've lost.
Okay,
lost him.
He's lost his connection. Okay, but I do think that's an excellent suggestion. And since we do have our city administrator in the room, I will ask that if we could follow up on at least initially setting up a non-Brown Act group, so less than a quorum of anybody that could meet informally to talk through the topics, which I'm happy to work with you on. And we've heard at least one supervisor say yes, and I believe Supervisor Miley is interested too. He just had a connection problem, but we should contact him as well for the follow-up. Commissioner Baker.
Yes, thank you. Commissioners and everyone that's waited on this important matter. It sounds like there's the increments that will come from the EIFD. It sounds like there's the AASEG group who are in an exclusive negotiating agreement to become partial landowners. What I'd like to see is, and not necessarily next month, but certainly in a certain sense of urgency, is what kind of conversations are happening with the large tenants, and how will this affect potential negotiations with respect to the tax increments that will be leveraged. And Mr. Jones mentioned leverage with those ongoing negotiations, whether those are large tenants such as a new team or government entities, et cetera. Where are they in this, right? As they are negotiating long-term leases and understanding how that money will be leveraged for those negotiations. I'd like to see a little bit more visibility into those negotiations or discussions as they're taking place, whether that's with a new team or whether that's with large potential tenants, just so we can understand what their ask might be as early as possible, so that there's no sort of aha or, hey, we already made this decision and now this is going to trip up a potential bid. So we just ask that be kind of the handshake agreement, that we get to see those opportunities as early as possible.
Awesome, absolutely. Thank you so much. I believe Commissioner Halbert's hand is up.
Nope, I just forgot to take it down. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. No, this is super helpful, and absolutely the interrelationship between the operating tenants and the funding. And of course, we would note that there's an awful lot of federal infrastructure money being given out right now. So when we talk about leveraging, that if we have an actual plan and some local funding to serve as local match, we should be able to attract significant funding. I would also note that this Coliseum site is on BART, is on Amtrak, is on an airport connector, is on a freeway, is on multiple AC Transit bus lines, and is a regionally designated priority development area. That also applies to the part of West Oakland BART station area project that we were talking about, including, is also on all of these various transit services, as well as some of the other sites. So we have a great potential to bring that collaboration and bring that leveraging.
Hey, Chair Kaplan, I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I make one more comment?
Yes, sir.
If I just could register my thoughts here, is that because this is so centrally located, as you reminded me, it's on a transit corridor, easily accessible by our community's youth. And as I'm looking through the documents that we have, great opportunities for open space, for mixed use, for affordable housing, for childcare. Our youth need a place to go and just be a kid. If we could add rec space, almost like kind of like the Boys and Girls Club kind of thing, where they could be safe, where they could have a good time. Not a shopping mall, but a place to be a kid. I would love for that to be included in this. And I'll just say that of all the things that I hope we provide, I would want to add something for our, teens through young adult age, for them to hang out. And so I know that's part of the spirit. I just would like to see it called out in particular for our youth. So thank you.
Thank you so much. No, I think that's wonderful that in addition to naming recreation broadly, that we should explicitly name facilities for youth and young people as part of what would be included. So thank you for that. And see that this kind of collaboration is part of the advantage of being here where we have all the bodies together. Thank you, Commissioner Supervisor Hubbard. Okay, so I think Commissioner Miley's reconnection has worked. No, still not working. Okay. Okay, well, I just want to really appreciate Supervisor Miley had suggested that we bring the EIFD discussion to this body because there was this question about how to get the city and county talking together. So I think that was a great suggestion. So thank you, Supervisor Miley, for that. And I believe that concludes the items. And so that brings us to the adjournment of our meeting and an opportunity to name any future topics. We've already talked about the advisory board coming back. We will also be coming back to talk about plans for the future of this facility, soccer at the future of this facility. I want to note the public speaker we had at the beginning talking about bringing their soccer teams here. And the last thing I will just note that will be coming back is we are working on our cranes and our bleachers and testing them and seeing about having them be functional to be able to be utilized. So we will be able to discuss that further in the future. And just double checking, any other hands are up in the Zoom?
There is one public speaker with their hand raised. Mr. Abraham, would you like for him to speak?
Okay, 2 minutes.
Mr. Abraham, you have 2 minutes to speak.
Thank you, Ms. Mosen and Vice Mayor. Just a clarification. The EIFD law allows for the law enabling legislation for it allows for the JPA to create its own EIFD, but the important component is the Public Financing Authority because that's really the governing body. And I emphasize that because the person who's now our mayor, Mayor Tao, when she was running, had a meeting with me regarding how all of this works because she wanted to establish a citywide EIFD program. Now, fine, but I caution because given the provision regarding opposition and property owners, we could bite off too much of it very quickly rather than focusing on one at a time. We had discussed the need for the JPA to survive the bond issues when they are expired, if you will, would show its end. But we have a problem in sea level rise that, among others, I think more than anybody else, Zachary Wasserman has pointed to, we've done nothing about, and yet the Coliseum JPA is in the best position to deal with it, is going to have to deal with it for any development that happens on our grounds, let alone at the nearby Oakland Airport Business Park. So I really encourage everyone to think about the configuration of the JPA running the Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District and being the Public Financing Authority rather than the City Council. The same multiple zone provisions are in place as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that's all hands?
That is all hands.
Thank you all so much for your time and your attention and your thoughtfulness and your work to serve the community. With that, we are adjourned.
Record.
Well, so folks, that's it. And where we are at is, first of all, I want to thank, and I've thanked her privately, but also Vice Mayor Kaplan and County Supervisor Nate Miley, both longtime friends, for uh, allowing me to make this presentation, because beyond current events, what we have to be focused on, what I'm focused on, is getting ourselves to a point where we're realigned and capable of getting subsidies and programs for development projects off the ground quickly. The reason why all of our sports teams have left really has little to do with demographic change or demographics, and it has everything to do with our government's slowness. Oakland consistently acts like it's on its own timetable and not the timetable of NBA or the NFL or Major League Baseball. This is a consistent problem. It's a consistent problem. And so my aim was to really show how a stadium authority operates in terms of going through legislation and combining legislation in a Frankensteinian way that might seem complex, because it is, but it's necessary. This is what you're going to see, the taste that I gave you when the Las Vegas Stadium Authority gets going with respect to the athletics. You will see it with the Virginia Stadium Authority with respect to the Washington Commanders' need for a new stadium there. You will see it in Tennessee with the Nashville Stadium Authority. There is a process for how stadium authorities operate and consider legislation and that's why you have professionals leading that charge. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is contribute in such a way to cause a reset so that we can get to a point where we're doing these projects in a timely way. Also, for those of you who have these classic issues about sports and do sports create jobs and all that, forget that label, forget the label. And remember that you're talking about bringing a lot of people in to an area. But most important, the edifice that's built for that is worth a lot of money, in the billions. Tax increment financing allows us to capture money from that at a large scale to be used for assisting businesses that have been impacted by the pandemic, fixing the arena, the roof that was talked about, and a number of projects, libraries. This is essentially city building. It allows us to build the city, or if you like, rebuild the city in a sense. Okay. So it's a great day. Small steps lead to big results. And I'm happy because after 2 decades of calling for the provision for the advisory board to be activated, we're finally going to get that. And yeah, I'm finally going to get that. Now, does that mean I'm going to sit on it? Not necessarily. That's not the point. The point is we have the structure, okay? And we have the structure, and that we give the JPA some autonomy to work with so it doesn't feel like it's politically beholden to the city council, which can get us into a lot of trouble and has in the past. All right, we need some autonomy. Some. All right, so I guess no one else has any other questions, and you've got someone just joined us. Welcome. It was a great meeting. And again, I want to thank everybody that watched and commented. And I'll be back for more discussion regarding the athletics and the NFL and basketball and everything else and politics. All right. Subscribe to Zennie 62 on YouTube. Bookmark ZennieReport.com. that ends this broadcast. We'll see. Sorry if you did. I miss something. Did you want to make a comment? I know you just arrived. If you want to type in what you're looking for, or you have a question to be addressed, I'm happy to do that. But if not, I am going to close this. We've been on for 1 hour, almost 2 hours. Yeah, we are. Maybe I should just let it go for like the next 10 seconds so I can count down to 2 hours, right? Yeah, be a good idea. So we're almost there. 3, 2, 1, boom, 2 hours. And now we're 2 hours. All right. Live long and prosper in your world. Thank you. Hey, maybe we can get Star Trek conventions back here, right? Yeah, I got to do that. See ya. And when that's the other thing I wanted to say. Getting this nuts and bolts out of the way allows us to have these edifices where all these great times produced by these great events can happen. Not just the concerts, but yeah, Star Trek conventions, Super Bowls, NBA All-Star games. How about a second NBA team, one for Oakland and the East Bay, right? This can get us there if we play it right. But we need, above all else, to fix the sea level rise problem. Otherwise, we're going to have a hard time. Thanks.